It was a bright, sunny Saturday afternoon, the kind of day where you just want to run outside and play. The sky was blue, the birds were singing, and 12-year-old Timmy Jackson was having the best time ever. Where was he? Up on his family's patio roof. Yup, that little spot right above the back porch. It wasn't super high, but it was high enough to feel special. Timmy loved climbing up there with his favorite juice box, grape flavor of course. He'd sit, sip, and dream about being a superhero. Maybe he'd be Captain Zoom, flying around the world, saving people from bad guys. Or maybe he'd be Invisible Tim, sneaking around to stop sneaky crooks. Whatever it was, that patio roof was his secret hideout, his happy place. The neighborhood around him was pretty quiet that day. Willow Street was a normal little street with houses all in a row. There were green lawns, a few trees, and some kids riding bikes down the road. You could hear a dog bark every now and then, but that was it. It felt peaceful, well, almost peaceful. See, Timmy wasn't really alone up there. Someone was watching him, someone with sharp eyes and a grumpy face, someone who didn't like kids having fun at all. And that someone had a name, Mrs. Karen Baxter. Now let me tell you about Mrs. Karen. She lived right next door to Timmy's house, in a big white house with perfect flowers out front. She wasn't just any neighbor though, oh no, she was the meanest lady on Willow Street. Everyone knew it. The kids, the grown-ups, even the dogs, they all stayed away from her. Why? Because Mrs. Karen acted like she was the boss of everything. She'd yell at kids for riding bikes too fast. She'd complain if your grass grew too long. She'd even tell you your mailbox was the wrong color. The neighbors had a special name for her, HOA Karen. HOA stood for Homeowners Association, this group that made rules for the neighborhood. Mrs. Karen wasn't really in charge of it, but she sure acted like she was. To her, every little thing had to be perfect, and if it wasn't, watch out. So there was Timmy, sitting on his patio roof, legs dangling over the edge, sipping his juice box. He wasn't hurting anyone, he wasn't making noise, he was just chilling, enjoying the warm sun on his face. But to Mrs. Karen, that was a big problem. She didn't think kids should be up on roofs. She didn't think kids should be anywhere except maybe sitting still and quiet. And she really didn't like Timmy. Why? Well, Timmy was the kind of kid who didn't scare easy. He'd skateboard down the street even after she yelled at him. He'd laugh with his friends even when she glared. And now, sitting up on that roof, to Mrs. Karen, that was like waving a red flag in front of a mad bull. Timmy didn't know it yet, but Mrs. Karen was peeking out her window right that second. Her curtains moved just a tiny bit, and there she was staring at him. Her eyes were squinty, her mouth was a thin, angry line, and her hands were already reaching for her phone. She was ready to make trouble, big trouble. But here's the coolest part, Timmy had a secret. A super big, super awesome secret that Mrs. Karen didn't know about. It wasn't a cape or a magic ring or anything like that. No, it was something real, something sneaky. Something that was going to turn her whole day upside down, and maybe her whole life too. What do you think it was? Was it something he saw, something he heard, or maybe something he did? Hang on tight, because I'm going to tell you this story step by step, and it's going to get wild. Let's rewind a little bit so you can picture it better. Timmy wasn't a new kid on Willow Street. He'd lived there his whole life, 12 whole years. He had messy brown hair, a big grin, and a backpack full of comics. He wasn't super tall or super strong, but he was smart, like really smart. He noticed things other people didn't, like how the squirrels always ran to the same tree, or how Mr. Henderson's car made a funny noise every Tuesday. Timmy's house was a cozy yellow one with a red door. The patio roof stuck out over the back porch, and there was a little ladder his dad had put up so he could climb safely. His mom and dad didn't mind him going up there. "Just don't fall, kiddo," his dad would say with a laugh. It was their little family spot, and Timmy loved it. But Mrs. Karen, she hated it. Every time she saw Timmy up there, she'd huff and puff like a dragon ready to breathe fire. She'd march over to their house sometimes, banging on the door, telling Timmy's mom, "That boy shouldn't be on the roof. It's dangerous. It's against the rules." Timmy's mom would just smile and say, "He's fine, Karen, thanks for checking." But Mrs. Karen never let it go. She'd stomp back to her house, muttering about kids these days and bad parents. It was like she had a mission to stop all the fun on Willow Street, and Timmy was her #1 target. This Saturday, though, was different. Timmy didn't know it yet, but something big was about to happen. See, earlier that morning, before he climbed up with his juice box, he'd been outside playing. He'd kicked his soccer ball around the backyard, and it rolled right up to the fence, the one that separated his yard from Mrs. Karen's. He ran over to grab it, and that's when he saw something weird, something super strange. Mrs. Karen's backyard wasn't like everyone else. Most people had grass, maybe a swing set or a barbecue grill, but her yard, it was full of stuff: old bikes with rusty wheels, a pile of metal cans stacked up high, a lawnmower that looked like the one Mr. Henderson said got stolen last month. Timmy stopped and stared. "Whoa," he whispered to himself. "What's all that?" Didn't touch anything. He didn't climb the fence. He just looked. And then he heard her, Mrs. Karen's voice, sharp and loud, coming from her back door. "Get away from there, you little pest," she shouted. Timmy grabbed his ball and ran back to his side, his heart pounding. But his brain was already working. Why did she have all that stuff? Why was she so mad about him seeing it? He didn't tell anyone right away. He just went inside, grabbed his juice box, and climbed up to his roof to think. That's where he was now, sitting, sipping, and wondering. And that's when Mrs. Karen decided she'd had enough. Up on the roof, Timmy kicked his legs back and forth, the sun warming his sneakers. He didn't see her at first, but she saw him. Through her window, Mrs. Karen was glaring like a hawk. She didn't like that he was up there again. She didn't like that he wasn't scared of her. And she really didn't like that he was happy. To her, a kid on a roof was breaking every rule in her imaginary rule book. She grabbed her phone, ready to call someone, maybe Timmy's parents, maybe the HOA, maybe even the police. She wanted him gone, and she wanted it now. But here's the thing, Timmy wasn't just any kid. He wasn't just sitting there waiting for trouble. That secret he had, it was growing bigger every minute. It was like a puzzle piece clicking into place in his head. All that stuff in her yard, it wasn't normal. It wasn't hers. And he'd seen something else too. Something he hadn't told anyone yet. Something that made him smile just a little as he sipped his juice. Mrs. Karen thought she was the smart one, the one in charge. But she didn't know what was coming. She didn't know that Timmy had already figured her out. So there they were, Timmy on the roof, calm and cool, and Mrs. Karen in her house, mad and ready to fight. The neighborhood was quiet, but not for long. Something big was about to happen, something that would make everyone on Willow Street talk for weeks. What was Timmy's secret? How was it going to change everything? You'll have to stick with me to find out, because this story is just getting started and it's going to be awesome. What do you think so far? Guess what happens next? I bet you'll be surprised. The sun was still shining bright over Willow Street, but things were about to heat up in a whole different way. Mrs. Karen Baxter burst out of her big white house like a tornado, ready to wreck everything. Her face was red, her eyes were squinting, and her phone was already clutched tight in her hand. She marched across her perfect green lawn, her flip-flops smacking the ground with every angry step. She stopped right at the edge of Timmy's yard and pointed up at him on the patio roof. "You little troublemaker," she shouted, her voice loud enough to scare the birds out of the trees. "That roof isn't for playing. I'm calling 911 right now." Timmy Jackson, 12 years old and cool as a cucumber, just sat there. He was still on his family's patio roof, his legs swinging over the side. In one hand, he held his grape juice box, and he took a slow, calm sip. He didn't jump, he didn't yell back, he didn't even look scared. He just watched her, his brown eyes steady, like he knew something she didn't. And guess what? He did. Mrs. Karen was waving her finger at him like he'd just robbed a bank or set something on fire, but Timmy wasn't worried. Not even a little bit. Why? Because he had a secret, a big, juicy secret that was going to turn this whole mess upside down. Something she didn't see coming. Something that was going to make her wish she'd stayed inside her house with her perfect flowers and grumpy attitude. Mrs. Karen wasn't new to yelling at Timmy. Oh no, she'd done it a million times before. Like that time he was riding his skateboard down the street, laughing with his friends. She popped out of nowhere and screeched, "Slow down, you little monster, you're going to break something." Or that time his dog Buster barked at a squirrel and she banged on their door saying, "That mutt is too loud, keep him quiet." Even Timmy's mom's pretty pink flowers weren't safe. She'd complain they were too bright and against the rules. Rules that didn't even exist. Everyone on Willow Street knew Mrs. Karen loved to complain. The neighbors, grown-ups and kids alike would just roll their eyes when she started up. "There she goes again," they'd whisper. But Mrs. Karen didn't care one bit. She loved being the boss, or at least she thought she was the boss. Right now, she stood there in her yard, her phone up to her ear, glaring at Timmy like he was the worst kid in the world. "Hello 911, she said, her voice sharp and loud. "Yes, there's a boy on a roof. He's trespassing or something. You need to send someone quick." She kept pointing at him, her other hand on her hip, acting like she'd just caught a criminal. To her, Timmy sitting up there with his juice box was the biggest crime ever. She didn't like kids having fun. She didn't like anything that wasn't neat and quiet and boring. And Timmy, he was the opposite of boring. He was the kid who climbed trees, kicked soccer balls, and didn't back down when she got mad. That drove her nuts. But Timmy, he just kept sipping his juice. Slurp, slurp, slurp. He didn't say a word. He didn't need to. He'd heard her yell before and he knew she'd never stop. But this time was different. This time he wasn't scared, not even a tiny bit. Why? Because he'd seen something big, something weird, something that Mrs. Karen didn't know he knew. And it was going to change everything. What was it? Well, let's just say it had to do with her backyard and all that strange stuff he'd spotted earlier that morning. Stuff she didn't want anyone to see. Stuff that was about to make her wish she'd never picked up that phone. Let's back up a little so you can see how this all started bubbling up. That morning before Timmy climbed up to the roof, he'd been playing in his backyard. He was kicking his soccer ball around, having a blast. The ball rolled too far and bumped right up against the wooden fence, the one that split his yard from Mrs. Karen's. He jogged over to grab it, and that's when he saw it. Her backyard wasn't normal. It wasn't just grass and a picnic table like his yard. No way. It was full of stuff. Old bikes with flat tires and rusty chains. A big pile of dented metal cans stacked up like a wobbly tower. A lawnmower that looked just like the one Mr. Henderson said got stolen a few weeks ago. There was even a broken lamp and some tools that didn't look like they belonged to her. Timmy's eyes got wide. "Whoa," he whispered. "What's all that doing there?" He didn't climb over or touch anything. He just peeked through the little gaps in the fence. But then bam, Mrs. Karen's back door flew open. "Get away from there, you little pest," she yelled, stomping out in her flip-flops. Timmy snatched his ball and bolted back to his side, his heart thumping fast. She caught him looking and she was mad, really mad. But Timmy wasn't just scared, he was curious. Why was she so upset? Why did she have all that junk? And why did some of it look like stuff that went missing from the neighborhood? His brain started spinning like a top. Something wasn't right, and he knew it. So now, here he was, up on the roof, watching her call 911 like it was the end of the world. Mrs. Karen kept talking into her phone, her voice getting louder. "He's up there right now. It's dangerous. Someone needs to do something." She thought she was winning. She thought she'd scare Timmy off that roof and teach him a lesson. She thought she was the smartest person on Willow Street, but she was wrong. So wrong. Timmy wasn't shaking in his sneakers. He wasn't running inside to hide. He just sat there calm and quiet, his juice box almost empty now. Why wasn't he scared? Because he had that secret. That big, sneaky secret she didn't know about, and it was going to flip everything she thought she knew. See, Timmy wasn't like most kids when it came to Mrs. Karen. Other kids would duck and run when she started yelling, not Timmy. He'd faced her before and he'd learned something. She loved power. She loved telling people what to do, but Timmy wasn't the type to just listen and obey. He'd skateboard anyway. He'd let Buster bark anyway. And he'd sit on his roof anyway. That made her extra mad because she couldn't control him. And right now, with her pointing and shouting and calling the police, she thought she'd finally won. She thought she'd get him in trouble and show everyone who was boss. But she didn't know what Timmy knew. She didn't know what he'd seen in her yard, and she didn't know what he'd done about it. What had he done? Well, after he saw that weird stuff in her yard, he didn't just forget about it. He didn't just climb up to the roof to hide. No, Timmy was smarter than that. He'd gone inside and told his dad. Dad, he'd said, there's something funny in Mrs. Karen's yard, bikes and cans and a lawnmower that looks like Mr. Henderson. His dad had raised an eyebrow. Really? He'd said, that's strange. And then his dad had picked up the phone not to call Mrs. Karen, but to call someone else. Someone important. Someone who could check it out. Timmy didn't know all the details yet, but he knew his dad was on it, and that's why he wasn't scared now. That's why he just sat there, sipping away while Mrs. Karen raged below. The tension was building like a storm cloud over Willow Street. Mrs. Karen kept talking to 911, her voice getting higher and higher. Yes, he's still there, hurry up. She glared up at Timmy, thinking she'd caught him red-handed. She didn't see the little smile on his face. She didn't hear the quiet sound of a car rolling down the street, not yet. She didn't know that her big plan was about to fall apart. Timmy did, though. He knew something was coming. Something that would shut her up for good. Something that would make her wish she'd never stepped outside. The air felt thick, like anything could happen. Would the police show up? Would they climb up and get Timmy? Or would something else happen, something Mrs. Karen didn't expect? Timmy's secret was like a bomb waiting to go off, and she had no clue. She thought she was the hunter, but maybe she was the one being hunted. What did Timmy know? What was about to happen? You'll find out soon, because this story is just heating up and it's going to get crazy. The sun was still high in the sky over Willow Street, but things were starting to feel a little wild. Mrs. Karen Baxter stood in her yard, her phone pressed hard against her ear. She was dialing 911, her fingers moving fast like she couldn't wait to get Timmy in big trouble. Up on the patio roof, 12-year-old Timmy Jackson watched her. He had a tiny smirk on his face, just a little curve of his lips. He didn't climb down, he didn't run away, he didn't even flinch. He just sat there, his legs dangling, his juice box still in his hand. He was waiting. For what? Oh, you'll see soon. Down the street, something was happening. A police car rolled up super quiet. No sirens, no flashing lights, just a slow, sneaky glide. It stopped a few houses away, hidden behind a big tree. Mrs. Karen didn't notice a thing. She was way too busy shouting into her phone. There's a kid trespassing on a roof, she screeched, her voice so loud it echoed off the houses. You need to get here fast. He's breaking all the rules. She waved her free hand around like she was directing traffic, her flip-flops stomping the grass. She thought she was in charge. She thought she'd finally caught Timmy doing something bad. But Timmy's smirk just got a little bigger. Why? Because he knew something she didn't, something huge. See, earlier that morning, Timmy had seen something weird, really weird. He'd been kicking his soccer ball in his backyard when it rolled up to the fence, the wooden one between his yard and Mrs. Karen's. He'd bent down to pick it up, and that's when he peeked through the cracks. Her yard wasn't empty like most yards. It wasn't just grass and flowers. No way. It was full of junk, old bikes with rusty chains and flat tires. A big pile of dented cans stacked up high. A lawnmower that looked just like the one Mr. Henderson said got stolen. There was even a broken chair and some tools that didn't look like they belonged to her. Timmy's eyes had popped wide open. "What's all that?" he'd whispered to himself. He didn't stay long. Mrs. Karen had yelled at him to get away, and he'd grabbed his ball and run back. But he couldn't stop thinking about it. All that stuff, it didn't make sense. Why did she have it? Where did it come from? And why was she so mad when he saw it? Timmy wasn't dumb. He was a smart kid who noticed things, and he had a feeling, a big sneaky feeling, that something was wrong. So what did he do? He didn't just sit there wondering. He went inside and told his dad. "Dad," he'd said, "Mrs. Karen's got weird stuff in her yard, bikes and cans and a lawnmower that looks stolen." His dad had looked surprised. "Stolen?" he'd asked. "Are you sure?" Timmy nodded. "It's not normal, Dad." His dad didn't laugh or tell him to forget it. Nope. He picked up the phone and made a call. Timmy didn't hear everything, but he caught a few words like police and check it out. Then his dad had said, "Good job, Timmy, let me handle this." That was it. Timmy didn't know all the details, but he knew his dad was on the case. And now, sitting on the roof, watching Mrs. Karen yell at 911, he wasn't scared. Not one bit. Guess who was really in trouble now? Hint, it was Timmy. Mrs. Karen kept shouting into her phone, totally clueless. "Yes, he's still up there. It's dangerous. Hurry." She glared up at Timmy, her eyes like lasers, thinking she'd won this fight. She thought the police would come racing in, climb up, and drag Timmy down. She thought everyone would see she was right and he was wrong. Oh, she was so wrong. Timmy's smirk grew just a tiny bit more. He took another sip of his juice, slurp, slurp, and watched her like he was watching a funny show. He knew the police car was there. He'd seen it roll up, but Mrs. Karen, she was too loud, too mad, too busy to notice anything. The police car sat there, quiet as a mouse. 2 officers were inside, watching everything. They didn't jump out yet. They didn't turn on their lights. They were waiting, too, just like Timmy, waiting for the right moment. Mrs. Karen kept talking, her voice getting higher and squeakier. "He's breaking the rules. I'm tired of this kid causing trouble," she yelled. She thought she was the hero of Willow Street, saving the day from a bad kid on a roof. But every word she said was digging her into a bigger hole. A hole she didn't even see. Timmy kicked his legs a little, his sneakers bouncing against the roof. He remembered how mad Mrs. Karen got that morning when he peeked at her yard. "Get away, you pest," she'd shouted. Why was she so scared of him looking? Most people didn't care if you saw their backyard. Most people didn't have piles of junk that looked like it didn't belong. Timmy's brain was buzzing. He'd heard Mr. Henderson talk about his missing lawnmower at the block party. "Someone took it right out of my shed." Mr. Henderson had said, all grumpy. And last month, Timmy's friend Jake said his bike got stolen from his porch. Could all that stuff be in Mrs. Karen's yard? Was she hiding something big? He didn't have proof yet, but he didn't need it. His dad believed him, and that was enough. And now, with that police car sitting down the street, Timmy knew something was coming, something good. Something that would shut Mrs. Karen up once and for all. She kept yelling into her phone, "Where are you? This is an emergency." The 911 person probably didn't know what to say. A kid on a roof wasn't exactly a bank robbery, but Mrs. Karen acted like it was the worst thing ever. She loved being dramatic. She loved thinking she was the boss. Too bad for her, the real boss was about to show up, and it wasn't her. The air on Willow Street started to feel tight, like a rubber band stretched too far. Timmy could almost hear it snap. Something was going to break soon. Mrs. Karen didn't see the police car, but Timmy did. He didn't hear the officers talking, but he knew they were there for a reason. His dad's call had worked. The pieces were falling into place, and Mrs. Karen was too busy shouting to figure it out. "He's still there. Do your job," she hollered, shaking her fist at Timmy. He just waved back nice and slow, like he was saying hi to a friend. That made her even madder. Her face turned redder than a tomato. Timmy finished his juice box with one last slurp and tossed it beside him. He leaned back on his hands, looking down at her. She thought she had him trapped. She thought she'd won this game. But every second that passed, she was losing more and more. The police car was still there, still quiet. The officers were watching her now, not Timmy. Why? Because Timmy wasn't the troublemaker. He was the one who'd figured it out. He was the one who'd seen the truth. And Mrs. Karen, she was the one who'd been sneaky all along. The neighbors started to peek out now. Old Mrs. Lopez opened her curtains across the street. Jake's big brother stuck his head out the window 2 houses down. They heard Mrs. Karen yelling and they wanted to see what was up. "What's she mad about now?" Mrs. Lopez muttered. Jake's brother laughed. "Probably Timmy again." They were used to her fits, but this time felt different. This time there was a police car hiding nearby. This time Timmy wasn't running or hiding. He was just sitting, smirking, waiting. Mrs. Karen didn't notice the neighbors. She didn't notice the car. She didn't notice anything except Timmy on that roof. "You're in big trouble now," she shouted, thinking the police were coming for him. She had no idea they were already here, and not for the reason she thought. Timmy's secret was starting to peek out little by little. The junk in her yard, the call his dad made, the police sneaking up. It was all adding up, and she was totally blind to it. She kept yelling, thinking she'd won. Oh, she was so wrong. What was going to happen next? Would the police jump out? Would they catch Mrs. Karen off guard? Would Timmy's secret finally spill out for everyone to see? This story's getting hotter every minute, and you won't believe what's coming. Stick around, it's about to get wild. The sun was still shining over Willow Street, but everything was about to change in a big way. The police car, which had been sneaking up so quiet, rolled to a stop right in front of Mrs. Karen Baxter's big white house. Its tires crunched softly on the road, but there were no sirens, no flashing lights, just a calm, sneaky stop. The doors opened and 2 officers stepped out. They were tall, wearing dark blue uniforms with shiny badges that glinted in the sunlight. Up on the patio roof, 12-year-old Timmy Jackson saw them and waved like they were old friends. "Hey, officers," he called, his voice loud and happy. He wasn't scared, not one bit. He was excited. Mrs. Karen, still standing in her yard with her phone pressed to her ear, froze like a statue. Her mouth was open mid-yell, but no sound came out. "Wait, what?" she sputtered, her eyes going wide. She looked at the police, then up at Timmy, then back at the police. Her phone slipped a little in her hand, but she didn't hang up. She was too shocked to move. She'd been yelling at 911, telling them to come get Timmy off the roof, thinking she'd won this fight. But now the cops were here, and they weren't even looking at Timmy. Nope, they walked straight toward her, their boots thumping on the grass. "Mrs. Baxter," one of the officers said. His voice was strong and serious, like a teacher who means business. He had a little notebook in his hand, and he flipped it open. "We got a report about stolen goods in your yard. Mind if we take a look?" Mrs. Karen's jaw dropped so low it almost hit the ground. Her face went white, then red, then white again. "Stolen goods," she squeaked, her voice all shaky. "What are you talking about? I called you about that kid." She pointed up at Timmy, but the officers didn't even turn their heads. They just stared at her, waiting for an answer. Up on the roof, Timmy couldn't hold back anymore. He hopped down, landing on the grass with a soft thud. He had a big grin on his face, bigger than ever. "Told you, Dad," he whispered to himself, brushing off his hands. His juice box was still up there, empty now, but he didn't care. This was the moment he'd been waiting for. Turns out, Timmy wasn't just a kid with a juice box sitting around doing nothing. Oh no. He was the one who'd caught the real troublemaker, and that troublemaker was Mrs. Karen. Let's rewind a tiny bit so you can see how this all exploded. Mrs. Karen had been yelling into her phone, telling 911 to hurry up and get Timmy off the roof. She thought she was so smart, calling the police on him. She thought they'd show up, climb up, and drag him down, proving she was the boss of Willow Street. But while she was shouting, that police car had rolled up super quiet. Timmy saw it. He knew it was coming. Why? Because he'd told his dad about the weird stuff in Mrs. Karen's backyard. Old bikes, rusty cans, a lawnmower that looked stolen. His dad had called the police, not 911, but the real police station, and said, "Hey, you might want to check out Mrs. Baxter's yard. Something's not right." And now here they were. The officers stood in front of Mrs. Karen, calm but firm. The one who'd spoken had short black hair and a serious face. The other one, a lady with a ponytail, crossed her arms and nodded. "We got a tip," the lady officer said. "Someone saw stolen stuff in your yard. Bikes, tools, maybe a lawnmower. Ring any bells?" Mrs. Karen shook her head fast, her flip-flops sliding a little on the grass. "No, that's crazy. I don't have anything like that," she said, her voice all high and squeaky. But her eyes darted to the side, toward her backyard, and Timmy saw it. He knew she was lying. The 911 operator on the phone finally spoke up. Ma'am, are the police there now?" Mrs. Karen blinked like she'd forgotten she was still on the call. "Yes, but they're not here for him," she stammered, pointing at Timmy again. The operator went silent, probably super confused. Mrs. Karen hung up the phone with a shaky hand and stared at the officers. "This is a mistake," she said. "That kid's the problem. He's on the roof. He's breaking rules." But the officers didn't budge. They weren't here for Timmy. They were here for her. Timmy stood by his house now, watching it all go down. His grin was so big his cheeks hurt. He'd been waiting for this. See, he wasn't just some kid who climbed roofs for fun. He was smart. He noticed things. That morning when he saw all that junk in Mrs. Karen's yard, bikes, cans, a lawnmower, he didn't just shrug and forget it. He told his dad, and his dad took it seriously. And now, the police were here to check it out. Mrs. Karen thought she'd caught Timmy doing something bad, but the truth was flipping right back at her. She was the one in trouble, and she didn't even know how bad it was yet. The officer with the notebook stepped closer. "Mrs. Baxter, we need to see your backyard now." His voice wasn't mean, but it wasn't asking either. It was telling. Mrs. Karen's hands shook. "You can't just come in my yard," she said, trying to sound tough. "You need a warrant." The lady officer raised an eyebrow. "We can see the pile from the street," she said. "That's enough to take a look. Let's go." Mrs. Karen's mouth opened and closed like a fish, but no words came out. She was stuck. Timmy bounced on his toes, too excited to stand still. He knew what they'd find. He'd seen it, the old bikes, the rusty cans, the lawnmower that looked like Mr. Henderson's. And he'd heard the neighbors talk about stuff going missing. Jake's bike, Mrs. Lopez's garden tools, even a lamp from someone's porch. It was all adding up, and Mrs. Karen's big plan to get him in trouble was falling apart fast. The officers started walking toward her backyard, and she had no choice but to follow, her flip-flops dragging like she didn't want to go. "Wait," she yelled, running after them. "This is ridiculous. That kid's lying. He's making it up." But the officers didn't stop. They rounded the corner of her house, and there it was, her backyard full of junk. The bikes were leaning against the fence, all rusty and bent. The pile of cans glinted in the sun, wobbly and tall. The lawnmower sat right in the middle, green and scratched, just like Mr. Henderson's. The officers stopped and stared. Well, the man officer said, writing something in his notebook. "What's all this?" Mrs. Karen's face went pale. I don't know," she said. "It's just stuff, old stuff I found." The lady officer bent down and picked up a bike. "This has Jake scratched on it," she said, showing it to her partner. "No, a kid named Jake." Mrs. Karen's eyes got huge. "No, I don't. It's not mine," she shouted. But Timmy, standing by his fence now, piped up. "Jake's my friend. His bike got stolen last month." The officers turned to him and he grinned. "And that lawnmower? Mr. Henderson's been looking for it." Mrs. Karen spun around, glaring at Timmy. "You little rat," she snapped. "You did this." But the officers didn't care about her yelling. They were too busy looking at the junk. The man officer pulled out his radio and started talking. "Yeah, we've got stolen goods here. Bikes, tools, a lawnmower. Send another car." Mrs. Karen's hands flew to her head. "Stolen? No, I didn't steal anything," she cried. But no one believed her, not anymore. Timmy's dad came out of their house then, walking over with a big smile. "Good job, Timmy," he said, ruffling his hair. "You caught her." Timmy beamed. "I knew it, Dad. I knew something was fishy." Turns out, Timmy wasn't just a kid with a juice box. He was the hero of Willow Street. Mrs. Karen had been sneaking stuff from the neighbors for months, hiding it in her yard, thinking no one would notice. But Timmy did. He saw it, he told his dad, and now the police were here. The big reveal was out. She was the real troublemaker, not him. The neighbors started coming outside now, watching from their porches. Mrs. Lopez clapped her hands. "I knew she was up to no good," she said. Jake ran over, pointing at the bike. "That's mine," he yelled. Mrs. Karen sank down onto her grass, her head in her hands. Her big plan to get Timmy in trouble had backfired big time. The officers kept looking through the junk, finding more and more stolen stuff. Timmy stood tall, proud as can be. He'd flipped the whole game, and Mrs. Karen never saw it coming. The neighbors couldn't believe their eyes. People started peeking out their windows, pulling back curtains and stepping onto their porches. Old Mrs. Lopez from across the street leaned out her door, her hands on her hips. "What's going on?" she called. Jake's big brother poked his head out, his mouth open wide. "Look at all that stuff," he yelled. Someone down the street shouted loud enough for everyone to hear. "She's been hoarding stuff for months." Whispers and gasps spread like wildfire. "That's my bike," Jake said, running over to the fence. "And those are my dad's tools," another kid added. The whole neighborhood was waking up, pointing and talking, finally seeing the truth about Mrs. Karen. Timmy Jackson stood by his house, watching it all with a big smile. His dad came out the back door, wiping his hands on a towel. He saw the police car, the neighbors, and Mrs. Karen sitting inside, and he grinned. "Good eye, kid," he said, walking over to Timmy. He held up his hand, and Timmy slapped it with a loud high five. "Thanks, Dad," Timmy said, his chest puffing out like a superhero. He'd done it. He'd seen the weird stuff in her yard, told his dad, and now the police had caught her. All that junk, the bikes, the tools, the lawnmower, was proof she'd been sneaky for a long time. And Timmy, he was the one who stopped her. The police car's engine started with a low rumble. The officers climbed in the front, and the neighbors watched as it pulled away. "Bye, Mrs. Karen," Jake's brother shouted, waving with a big laugh. Mrs. Lopez clapped her hands and cheered. "Good riddance," she said. Down the street, Mr. Henderson came hobbling out with his cane, squinting at the lawnmower still in her yard. "That's mine," he yelled, shaking his fist. "I knew someone took it." The whole neighborhood was buzzing now, laughing and talking and cheering. For once, Willow Street felt peaceful. No more Mrs. Karen stomping around, telling everyone what to do. The air felt lighter, like a big storm had finally passed. Timmy looked around, soaking it all in. The sun was still shining, the birds were chirping again, and the street was alive with happy voices. He turned to his dad. "Can I go back up?" he asked, pointing at the patio roof. His dad chuckled. "Sure, kid, you earned it." Timmy ran inside, grabbed a fresh grape juice box from the fridge, and climbed back up the little ladder to his favorite spot. He plopped down, legs dangling over the edge, and took a big sip, slurp, slurp. The roof was warm under him, the juice was cold, and the day felt perfect. He looked out over Willow Street, grinning like the king of the day. And you know what? He kind of was. The police car disappeared around the corner, taking Mrs. Karen away. The neighbors started walking over to her yard, picking up their stolen stuff. Jake hugged his bike like it was a lost puppy. Mr. Henderson dragged his lawnmower back home, muttering about that crazy lady. Mrs. Lopez found her garden shovel and waved it in the air like a prize. Everyone was smiling, chatting, and thanking Timmy. "You're a hero, Timmy," Jake called up to him. Timmy waved back, his juice box in hand, feeling on top of the world. So what's the big lesson from all this? Sometimes the person who's pointing fingers and yelling the loudest is the one hiding the biggest secrets. Think about it, Mrs. Karen was always bossing everyone around, acting like she was perfect. She pointed at Timmy, calling him a troublemaker, but guess what? She was the real sneaky one, hiding stolen stuff in her yard. Timmy didn't need to shout back or fight her. He didn't need to climb down from his roof and argue. Nope, He just watched, waited, and let the truth come out all by itself. Pretty cool, right? He was quiet, but he was smart, and that made him the hero. Next time someone's giving you a hard time, like a bully at school or a grumpy grown-up telling you what to do, maybe take a closer look. Watch them like Timmy watched Mrs. Karen. You might spot something they don't want you to see. You might figure out they're not as tough as they act. And maybe, just maybe, you'll be the one to turn it all around. You don't have to be loud or big or strong to be a hero. You just have to be brave and clever like Timmy. He stayed calm, told his dad, and let the police handle the rest. That's real power. What do you think, friends? Wasn't it awesome how Timmy's big win made Willow Street happy again? I bet you could be a hero like him someday. Thanks for sticking with me through this wild story. Did you like Timmy's victory? Drop a yes or no in the comments below and tell me what you thought. I can't wait to hear from you. See you in the next fun story. Bye for now.